Numbers are thrown out all the time.
Are they proof of some truth or just fluff that bluffs us? These statistics need some serious looking into. I'm Brendan Fernandez, and that's what I'll do. Because some numbers are just worth figuring out. Today, there are about 260,000 more vehicles on the road compared to a decade ago. But the number of road accidents has not risen in tandem. In fact, official figures show that number has fallen over the last few years.
Does that mean that our roads are safer? What if these numbers only tell half the story? After these videos went viral, they got Singaporeans thinking about how safe our roads are. Over the past 10 years, the vehicle population has grown by about 36%. We now have almost 1 million cars in Singapore. Cars, including taxis, saw the biggest jump, followed by buses, goods vehicles and other vehicles. The only category that went down was motorcycles. Since there are now about 260,000 more vehicles on the road than there were a decade ago, the chances of an accident happening should be higher. Or so you would think. But data from the traffic police shows otherwise.
On the horizontal, the years from 2003 to 2012. On the vertical, the number of fatal accidents and accidents involving injuries. Now, from 2003 to 2010, there was a steady increase.
From 6,443 a year to 8,625. That's a 33% increase.
In the year 2010, the year with the highest number of accidents, there were on average more than 23 accidents involving either fatalities or injuries every single day. But after 2010, the number of accidents declined, first to 8,000, then to 7,200. In fact, in 2012, the number of accidents was the lowest it had been in 6 years. So, lower fatalities, fewer injuries, safer roads?
Statistics that you have cited are really reported accidents, reported to the police.
I see.
So those numbers have fallen. Now, there are many unreported accidents. There are accidents reported to the insurance agency, and these are not taken into account. The other thing that seldom looked at is when you cite an accident, the number of accidents, it means the number of cases. So in one case, there could be 3-4 vehicles involved, and there may be more than one person injured. So those are two different sets of numbers.
Let's take a closer look at the numbers. It didn't used to be that commercial vehicles and buses caused more fatal accidents than cars. In 2011, that changed. Almost 3 in 10 of the vehicles involved in a fatal road accident in 2011 was a heavy vehicle. But heavy vehicles accounted for fewer than 2 in 10 of the total vehicle population. Cars and taxis, on the other hand, made up 6 in 10 of the vehicles on the road. But when a fatal accident occurred, fewer than 5 in 10 of the vehicles involved were cars.
So, could we say then that heavy vehicles are causing more accidents?
I think that is not a very fair statement. It could be the other road users that are causing the accident. But obviously, when a heavy vehicle is involved in an accident, the chances of injury is much more, which means they get reported much more. Whereas again with a car, chances is that if a minor accident, they may not report it. But it's not fair to compare just at vehicle numbers. The reason is that heavy vehicles tend to travel a lot more than cars. So the right way of looking at it is the actual vehicle kilometer travel.
Police data also shows that fatalities involving 2 vulnerable groups have also fallen. In 2012, fewer pedestrians and motorcyclists and pillion riders were killed while on our roads. But it's a different story for the elderly.
Motorists aged 60 and above accounted for some 11% of total casualties in 2009. This rose to about 15% in 2012. This means that more than 1 in 10 of people who were killed or injured in road accidents in 2012 was above 60 years old.
When we look at some of the details, we found that comparing with the younger people, the elderly seem to have problems in 3 particular locations. One is crossing when there is a red man. And obviously, either they have not been able to complete the crossing because they have to move slower, or that they somehow are not able to judge as well as the younger drivers. So they seem to have some problem there. The other one is that crossing within 50 meters of an overhead bridge. That seems to be much more of a problem than for a younger driver or a younger pedestrian. Or where roads have no clear pedestrian crossing, they seem to have more problem.
When I was learning to ride a motorcycle, the emphasis was on being a responsible road user. What mattered most was our safety and the safety of everyone else on the road. I think that was good advice, because when accidents happen, no matter whose fault it is, motorcyclists tend to be at a greater risk of injury because we're more exposed than, say, car drivers. But just how much greater?
On average, motorists have a 10% chance of being involved in an injury accident at least once in their life. This means that they themselves could be hurt, or they could injure others, like a passenger or pedestrian. Motorcyclists, on the other hand, have a 60% chance of injuring themselves or their pillion rider in an accident at least once in their lifetime. These percentages are for typical road users. If you're reckless, of course, your risk goes up.
So how did you come up with 10% versus 60%?
One way of looking at this is the pyramid, that for every fatal accident, this is a fatal accident, for every fatal accident in Singapore, there are about 45 injury accidents. And that you have another about 700 reported non-injury accidents. Now, non-injury accidents are accidents where a car is just damaged, but it is reported, meaning that it's reported to the insurance because there is a claim. But there are also unreported accidents because the person just didn't want to report it and to just settle it on their own. Now that is about 3 times more. Now, using this as a scale, we can also then guess what is that probability.
Woodlands Avenue 7 into Gambas Avenue. Intersection of Tampines Avenue 1, Tampines Avenue 4 and Bedok Reservoir Road. Junction of Rochor Road and Victoria Street. Merging of Seletar and Bukit Timah expressways. On each of these roads, more than 15 accidents have taken place in the last 3 years. These are marked as black spots by the Land Transport Authority, or LTA. About 20 to 30 new sites are identified each year, and there are now about 100 black spots island-wide.
How effective is the LTA's Black Spot program?
There are certain limitations about the Black Spot program. One is that it's a very reactive program. You have to wait until accident occur before you decide that there is this place requires action. Now, obviously, that is not ideal. You want to fix problem before problems occur.
Earlier we showed you this. Accidents involving fatalities and injuries have gone down in the last 3 years. To keep accidents in check, the traffic police have stepped up enforcement. But in the same period, the number of people caught speeding went up by almost 40%. Running red lights, another persistent type of traffic violation, went up as well by 8%. In total, traffic violations have gone up from this to this, an increase of about 8%.
Are these the most important numbers for us in terms of
thinking about how to improve road safety?
Now, one way to do that is to look at near miss. Near misses are cases where there is actually a threat of an accident, but because the person took precautionary measure or took a quick reaction, he has avoided a collision. But the threat is there. Now, there are obviously more near misses than actual accident. Now, given that, what it means is that if we can study near misses, we're able then to be more proactive in the way we deal with the occurrence of accident.
But how do you spot them unless someone reports them or unless you have a camera looking at the location all the time? It'd be a good idea, but may not be very practical at the moment.
Inattentiveness is a big reason cited by road users for failing to properly control their vehicles. We tried a simple experiment to see if drivers can keep their eyes on the road and on their phones at the same time.
Fewer people were killed or injured on our roads in the past 2 years, down from the peak in 2010. But does that mean our roads have become safer? Or do the numbers only tell half the story?
Data provided by the traffic police shows that in the last 10 years, January and November usually saw the most road accidents involving either fatalities or injuries. There is, however, no data for other things, for example, the kind of cars that were involved, or if weather was a factor. More importantly, this data focuses only on accidents involving either a fatality or an injury. Currently, if there's no injury after an accident, the police don't have to be informed. So this data excludes near misses, or accidents that could have happened but were avoided in time.
How do we get near miss data?
That is the tough part. What I would like is to have the general public tell us that, I nearly got into a near miss. I hope that by using crowdsourcing, we will be able to get a lot of information about near misses that is on the road, and from there to mine the data and then to be able to be more proactive in the way we deal with accidents.
Today, tiny mounted cameras make traffic near misses easier to capture and compute. And it looks like they happen for various reasons. The urge to beat traffic, hesitant driving, and failure to give way.
A near miss is defined as an unplanned event that did not result in injury, illness, or damage, but had the potential to do so. How is it quantified?
One of the methods is called time to collision, or the time taken for a vehicle to collide with another if no action is taken by either driver. If two vehicles are traveling in the same direction and at the same speed, let's say 70 kilometers an hour, the time to collision is infinite, meaning there is no chance of collision.
What happens when the first vehicle slows down to about 50 kilometers per hour?
While the motorist behind continues at 70. That's when they should detect a problem, a threat. Provided the driver behind reacts quickly to the threat, they'll end up with a near miss. But if they don't, a collision results.
Interestingly, it's only when time to collision falls to 7 seconds or less that we even register that there's a threat.
But if the vehicle in front slows down suddenly, time to collision can fall drastically to 4 or even 3 seconds or less, which leaves the driver behind little time to react, thus increasing the chance of a crash.
But why 7 seconds? How did you figure out that 7 seconds was the number that makes such a difference?
It is through empirical studies. We made a lot of observation of how cars follow one after another, and that at 7 seconds or beyond 7 seconds, we look at the model and we find that the vehicles don't really react. But below 7 seconds, they begin to react.
This road has a speed limit of 50 kilometers per hour. By keeping to this speed, Near misses can also be prevented. Did you know that 50 kilometers an hour is the speed limit on all roads in Singapore, unless otherwise stated? Too slow, you say? There's a good reason for that.
Imagine you're in a car traveling at 50 kilometers per hour.
At this speed, you can comfortably see up to about 100 meters ahead of you, and no more. So if you detect a pedestrian on the horizon about 100 meters away, you should have enough time and distance to come to a complete stop and avoid a collision.
Now increase your speed to 100 kilometers per hour.
You now need a longer distance to come to a complete stop. And at that speed, you might see the pedestrian, but you wouldn't be able to stop in time. This is why motorists are advised to keep to speed limits. There's also another reason for this. Think of speed difference this way. Imagine two vehicles, one merging onto the expressway and another that's already on it, traveling at a high speed. Now, the merging lane should allow the vehicle that's entering to accelerate up to almost the same speed as the vehicle that's on the expressway. Then, the chances of a collision are reduced. To ensure everyone's safety, motorists need to observe speed limits and be mindful of other road users. But to do that, you need to keep your eye on the road. In 2010, the United States reported that nearly 1 in 5 cases of fatal crashes were the result of distracted drivers. And the reason for being distracted? Texting your friend that you'll be late for dinner while driving. To understand the impact of texting while driving, we sought the help of the instructors at Singapore's Bukit Batok Driving School.
By and large, people in Singapore love taking pictures, whether it's candid shots with their friends to a photo of what they just had for lunch. In fact, the only kind of picture we don't seem to like is the sort taken by this kind of camera.
It's shown that installing such cameras to capture red running or driving through red lights have decreased violations by as much as 40%. At least in the first few months of the camera's installation. In Singapore, red running cases climbed from some 17,000 in 2010 to 18,700 in 2012.
Let's be very honest, nobody likes a red light. It makes you do something that you don't like to do. So people try to avoid the red light, and if they can probably not stop, they try to take a risk. Now it's extremely dangerous because you are claiming priority when you do not have it.
How do we know where to put a red light camera? How do we choose a junction that where it would be effective?
We built a model, and the model takes into account all the different factors that affect accident and calibrate it using the various data that is observed. And from the data and from the model, we put in a factor and say whether there is a red light camera or not. With a red light camera, how many accidents there will be. Without a red light camera, how many accidents there will be. Now this is a predictive approach, meaning that we don't observe it, we predict it. By doing all this, we can then rank all the junctions and say which junctions are able to get the most benefit with the installation of a red light camera.
But cameras alone won't help unless motorists themselves take charge. Knowing not to text while driving is one example. Now watch what happens when 3 drivers, including me, try to text and drive at the same time.
Take out your handphone. Yep. Type a message. Road traffic accident. Commonly happens.
Can you repeat the message to me?
Road traffic accidents.
Road traffic
accidents commonly happens because we drive. Keep going. Because we drive and try faster. You have to keep moving faster and try to send.
Drive and send.
And you go. Oh.
I can't even drive probably because I'm holding my phone.
Exactly. Hey, you know where you're going.
Right.
It's not necessary to on your wiper.
Not the right time for the wiper.
Okay.
Drive and send.
And you're going to hit the curb. Okay. And you're not supposed to drive with one hand. Because we drive.
We drive a text.
Okay.
Ready?
Yeah.
That was terrible. I didn't get the
Yes,
message
very
right.
terrible.
Where if you're in a car and before you start the car, you have to put your phone somewhere. Otherwise, the car will not start. And you cannot take it out during the journey. And not only that, the system will answer automatically that you are engaged in driving. So there are some systems being tried out overseas on trying to curb this distracted driving.
A road accident is not as devastating in scale as a plane crash or train derailment. But a lot of the time, road accidents can be prevented. So rather than see it all as a big game of chance, why not make road safety our responsibility?